The news continues right now. I want to turn things over to Don Lemon for CNN Tonight. Don?
Anderson, thank you very much. This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. A bitterly divided America watching tonight as a new Supreme Court justice is sworn in, and the President Trump, threw gasoline on the fire.
I would like to begin tonight's proceeding differently than perhaps any other event of such magnitude. On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure. Those who step forward to serve our country deserve a fair and dignified evaluation, not a campaign of political and personal destruction based on lies and deception. And with that, I must state that you, sir, under historic scrutiny, were proven innocent.
Well, no matter what the president says, Brett Kavanaugh, now Justice Kavanaugh, was not proven innocent. Look, he may very well be innocent, don't get me wrong, but we don't know, and we never will, and that is partly why this has been such a divisive issue for this country. There was no trial, there was no official finding. The results of the FBI investigation remained secret, though we do know there were other potential witnesses the FBI never talked to. So no, Justice Kavanaugh was not proven innocent. This whole thing was political, and it was designed to get exactly the result we saw tonight. Another conservative justice on the Supreme Court. Justice Kavanaugh's nomination was confirmed by one of the slimmest margins ever, 50-48, almost entirely along party lines. And Americans were very much at odds about his nomination, with protests all across the country. So this is a time when you might expect a president to call for us to be put aside our differences, to call for unity. Well, you might expect any other president to do that, but not this one. President Trump, his actions and his words tell you everything you need to know. The president is using division as a weapon, and he is proud of every win he and his party get, no matter how much it costs Americans. The proof? The president not only spiking the ball today by ramping up and claiming that the accusations against Kavanaugh were a hoax.
A man that was caught up in a hoax that was set up by the Democrats, using the Democrats' lawyers, and now they want to impeach him.
The fact is, Christine Blasey Ford contacted her Congresswoman Anna Eshoo when Kavanaugh's name appeared on the short list to replace Justice Anthony Kennedy before President Trump nominated him. And remember, this is the president who, day after day, calling Professor Ford credible, mocked her at length in front of a cheering crowd at a campaign rally. Now, he would have you believe that her whole story, everything she said Brett Kavanaugh did to her, all those excruciating details, he would have you believe all that was a hoax, cooked up by Democrats. Looks like a hoax is a new witch hunt, right? So let's take a look at some of the things President Trump has claimed were hoaxes. Things that, no surprise, all turned out to be true. Top of the list, the thing the president really loves to hate, the thing he has called both a witch hunt and a hoax, Russia's election interference.
Now we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax, okay?
And he tweeted about it too, calling Russia's interference a big hoax. A hoax, huh? Well, I want you to listen to the president's own director of national intelligence. Here's Dan Coates.
We acknowledge the threat. It is real. It is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in.
Doesn't sound like a hoax to me. And certainly doesn't sound like DNI Coates thinks it's a hoax. Another thing Donald Trump thinks is a hoax, global warming. He has been claiming that for years. But just today, experts at the UN warned of extreme drought, wildfires, floods, and food shortages caused by global warming. And they say all of that could happen within our lifetimes. So despite what the president claims, that's not a hoax either. It's not a hoax. The president also seems to think the death toll in Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria is a hoax as well, tweeting, quote, 3,000 people did not die in the two hurricanes that hit Puerto Rico. That, even though the governor announced that the death toll was 2,975. The president would like you to believe this was a hoax, too.
I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. I can do anything.
Well, despite what you heard Donald Trump say there, the New York Times reports he has repeatedly suggested the voice on that tape is not actually his, even though he said this.
I said it, I was wrong, and I apologize.
And we all remember what President Trump said. This was back in April when he was asked whether he knew about that $130,000 payment to Silent Stormy Daniels, who I'm going to talk to in just a moment, by the way. Watch this.
President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make this if there was no truth or allegation?
You have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
Well, we all know that's not true. The president's former fixer and keeper of secrets, Michael Cohen, told us that in his guilty plea in August when he said, quote, in coordination and at the direction of a candidate for federal office, he kept information that would have been harmful to the candidate from becoming public. And that candidate was Donald Trump. So when the president tries to tell you that what you've seen with your own eyes and what you've heard with your own ears is a hoax, just remember all the other times he has cried hoax. Remember all those things he claimed weren't true and turned out to be true? Remember his divisive language tonight at Justice Kavanaugh swearing in? Proof that this president is our divider in chief. Let's bring in now CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us here. You know, we heard what the president said about Kavanaugh. What did Kavanaugh say tonight?
Well, Kavanaugh tried to strike a little bit of a different tone, a much different tone, Don, than what we saw when he testified, that aggressive tone where he was coming forward, saying it was all a conspiracy against him. Tonight, he went a much different direction. He tried to say, when I get on the court, this is how I'm going to act.
The Senate confirmation process was contentious and emotional. That process is over. My focus now is to be the best justice I can be. I take this office with gratitude and no bitterness. On the Supreme Court, I will seek to be a force for stability and unity. My goal is to be a great justice for all Americans and for all of America.
So you see there, Don, he's trying to tamp down that concern that he didn't have the right temperament to be a Supreme Court justice after that testimony. He also said he's going to be the first Supreme Court justice to have all female clerks. He said that is something that's never happened before. Certainly trying to respond to those claims, to those women who are mad about the Me Too movement and the sexual assault claims against him, trying to say he understands that workplace harassment for women is still a problem. He's going to have these female clerks. And one more thing I do want to note, Don, from in the room, when President Trump was speaking, after he said he wanted to apologize to Brett Kavanaugh and his family, he said that this shows that we're back to where you are innocent until you're proven guilty. And when President Trump said that, one person clapping in the room was Clarence Thomas, who, of course, is the other justice who was accused of sexual harassment back during his confirmation hearing. It's pretty unusual for them to clap and applaud at such a moment like that, but he was one of those there clapping along with the president's words.
Caitlin Collins at the White House, and I thank you very much for that, Caitlin. Well, I told you that I'd be talking to Stormy Daniels tonight, and here she comes. I want to know what she thinks about the president, President Trump, how he treated women making accusations against Justice Kavanaugh.
Hi.
We'll see you after the break.
I'm Kate Riley with your CNN World Sport headlines. It now appears that the Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho will be investigated by the Football Association for comments he made on the touchline immediately after the 3-2 comeback win against Newcastle on Saturday. It's believed that the cameras appeared to catch him swearing in his native Portuguese language. The rules state that if he's found to have used, quote, offensive, insulting or abusive language, he could face a touchline ban. NBA preseason is underway and the Philadelphia 76ers and Dallas Mavericks played the second game against each other in China, just as they had done the first time. The Mavs once again came out of the gates fast, hitting a host of threes. Dallas's Chinese native Dingyang Huang played the last 9 minutes to the delight of the fans. Dallas's starters JJ Barea and Devin Harris seeing significant playing time there, closing out the game for the Mavs 115-112. And when it comes to individual awards in football, there are surely none more prestigious than the Ballon d'Or, but remarkably until now there hasn't been a women's award. But that's now changed. On Monday, the 15 women shortlisted for the first women's Ballon d'Or included the 5-time FIFA Player of the Year Marta from Brazil. The winners of the men's and women's awards will be announced on December 3rd. That's Liverpool Sports Headlines. I'm Kate Riley.
All new African Voices. This week, these dance crews and breakdancers are breaking down barriers.
Being part of a crew is like, it's family, you know, so you have one movement with all these different vibes of colors.
African Voices, today on CNN, in association with Glow.
The allure of the spotlight. Performers across the Middle East are tapping into their roots and taking to stages across the United States. This month, join Becky Anderson as we go backstage with a Broadway cast, a comedian, and a singer stealing the spotlight in America. Inside the Middle East, Wednesday on CNN. In association with MISC.
A hoax. That is what President Trump is calling sexual assault allegations against new Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Here with me is someone who knows what it's like to be accused by the president of pulling off a hoax, and that's Stormy Daniels, and she has a new memoir out. It's titled Full Disclosure. Thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
You too.
We're from the same place, from Baton Rouge. You went to high school not far from where I grew up, at Park Vista. You went to Scotlandville.
I did, Scotlandville Magnet.
Years apart. I'm much older than you.
Well, you don't look it.
But thank you, Stormy. Listen, the president calling Christine Blasey Ford a liar, something that he called you and your attorney. You know that all too well.
Yes, I do, for sure. I know, been in the adult business for as long as I have, and being a dancer, like, I've been called plenty of names.
Yeah.
But I think that when you know you're telling the truth, the worst thing you can be called is a liar.
Yeah.
And to have somebody so powerful say that, then of course all the followers jump on and accuse you as well.
And saying it's that things are a hoax when they're actually real. I did that in the open of my show. And the reason I ask you that is because you bravely, and you can talk about as much of this as you want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it at all because I understand how it is. You bravely wrote about a sexual assault in your book, and you say, I was 9, I was a child, and then I wasn't. And you write that you told an adult, and the adult didn't believe you. You know what it's like when the president attacks, someone like the president attacks victims.
Right. It sucks when, anyone accuses you of not telling the truth or attacks you, but when someone like in a powerful position, like in my book, it was a guidance counselor at the school that I went to, you just feel even worse. And you question yourself, and you feel hopeless. Is anyone out there listening? Is there anything I can do? I guess I don't matter. If nobody believes me, then it definitely does something, I think, to your self-worth.
Yeah. Do you think it's, since you've told your story, has it been powerful? Has it been healing for other people?
It was crazy because when the book first came out and I started getting, comments or this or that, and then I realized, oh my gosh, like there are thousands of people right now reading like these most intimate things about myself, and I was like, oh, suddenly I totally regretted like putting all that stuff in. And I went back and forth when I was writing the book. It wasn't in the first draft. And then I felt like, you know what, it's full disclosure, I have to put everything in. So I went back and added it and struggled with it and almost pulled it out of print a couple times. And, you know, when the day the book came out, I almost had a panic attack. I was like, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't put that in there. I wish I hadn't put that in there. You know, because everyone's going to know everything and like nothing is private anymore. Especially as I was telling the people who work for me that I work in the adult industry, so I'm already pretty exposed, so it was kind of like my only thing.
Yeah.
So I regretted it, and then I started getting these messages from people on, you know, Instagram messages, email, text, like they just started flooding in person at appearances, and some of them came from people that I've known my whole life. And I didn't even know that things had happened to them. And a couple messaged me and shared their stories with me and said I was the only person that they had ever told. And it's a lot to deal with because I don't know how to help them, except someone pointed out, you did.
And listen, I have a similar story to yours. Our stories are very similar. It was a neighbor and a friend. And just by telling your story and just by being open about it, I think that you help. I know that people tell me that I've helped them, so I'm sure that you've helped people as well. And thank you for talking about this, because it's just because you write about it in the book, it doesn't mean you want to talk about it. So I asked you before, and I just want to make sure that you're comfortable. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You also write in your book that you were surprised when you're out with Michael Avenatti, your attorney, how many people want to talk to him or take pictures of him or even touch him. He has gone on since he represented you to represent Julie Swetnick. He's represented parents whose kids were separated at the border. Now he's possibly going to have a career in politics. What do you think of that?
About his career in politics?
Yeah.
I think that I think he's definitely cut out to be a politician. He's made a lot of difference in a lot of lives. I definitely think he's got the charisma and the smarts to do it. I'm not going to say if I'm going to endorse him or not, because I want to know what the other candidates are. Besides, maybe I'll run against him.
Is it ever distracting?
Somewhere Michael Avenatti just fainted.
No. Is it ever distracting? Do you ever feel like, and what does it mean for your case of this? Do you think this affects your case?
No, and you know what? That's one of the things that I read a lot. You know, people send me messages and they think that Michael has abandoned me or I'm not important to him anymore or this or that. And we're in contact every single day, almost, you know, 3 or 4 times a day sometimes. And I will message him about other things that are going on, other problems, this or that. And, oh, this person did this or that. And he always puts me first.
Yeah. So you were, you said that the non-disclosure agreement that you signed is null and void. Today, the Trump's attorneys filed paperwork agreeing with you. Mm-hmm. You've already done several books now. I mean, have you ever considered just dropping the case now?
You know, when that first, you know, a couple weeks ago when they offered to drop it and admit it, you know, that they weren't going to sue me for the $20 million or whatever the crazy number was, there was this brief moment where I was super excited and I felt like I'd won. But then I realized, no, that's just them chickening out. Like, I want them to admit that it was illegal and that I was bullied.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't really quit now.
Yeah.
And everybody forgets that, you know, months ago in the beginning, I offered to return the money.
And they said
they weren't interested then.
Right. So why should you change course now?
Right.
Yeah. So you tweeted this yesterday. You said, Michael Cohen just said hi to me in the airport. I meant to take a flight to New York, but think I just landed on Mars. So what happened?
We just passed each other in LaGuardia the other night, and I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Michael Cohen. And he passed within like 3 feet of me, and you know, I was with, you know, my bodyguards and my tour manager and stuff, and we were like, hi. He turned around and he goes, hey guys, and smiled at us, and it was very strange.
Very strange, and that was it.
He looked happy and healthy though.
Yeah.
He looked like he had a weight off his shoulders.
Yeah. So, but do you harbor any ill feelings for him? Because it doesn't sound like it from
I did, like, for a long time. Like, he was the one who, you know, brokered this ridiculous deal, which isn't my issue because I wanted it. I didn't want this story to come out. Yeah. My issue with him was he's the one that went on TV and promoted a book deal and this and that and started, you know, wanting more and more and more from me. Yeah. And so I definitely think that I had a lot of ill will for him, towards him. But in the end, you know what, he kind of did the right thing. He admitted that I wasn't lying and that Trump had ordered him to do this. So in a way, I guess I forgive him.
Yeah. So you write in your book, it's, you know, and I mean this the best possible way. I was surprised at how much I like the book. I mean, it's because it's like a biography, right?
Right.
People underestimate you a lot, and you take them by the element of surprise, because you're actually a very smart woman, and you've done very well in the adult entertainment business as a director and as a producer. Why do you think people underestimate you so much? You said that you shouldn't even be here, right? You should be in Louisiana with a bunch of kids and maybe living.
Right.
You know, I'll let people read the book.
Right. I mean, I think that people still have the misconception that if you have blonde hair and big boobs, you must be a ditz. And a lot of people also think that because I work in adult entertainment and I'm a dancer, and that I must not be smart enough to do anything else.
Right.
You know, they think that, oh, she's incapable of holding any other job. But they don't realize that, you know, I'm a producer, writer, director. I'm responsible for millions of dollars for the company's money every year.
You said you don't have many regrets, but the one that you have recently is writing about the president's private parts. Why do you regret that?
I don't really regret it. I just have a couple moments where I'm like, ooh, that was kind of mean. But then I look back on all the horrible things he said about other people and women, and calling women pigs, and you know, attacking girls' weight and their looks, and then I don't feel so bad. But I don't agree in general with like body shaming. But I was backed into a corner. I didn't really have a choice. I'm not a liar, and that's basically the only thing I could say to prove that I'm telling the truth.
You dedicate this book to your daughter.
Yes.
What do you want her and others to get from it?
Hopefully she doesn't read it for a few years. But I do hope that she reads it, and I hope that it inspires her to not only do what she thinks is right and stand up for herself, but to stay her path and follow her dreams.
Yeah. It's a real pleasure meeting you, and I'm enjoying the book. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The president tonight saying that Brett Kavanaugh was proven innocent, even though the FBI's report is still secret and multiple potential witnesses were never contacted. Is it all just an attempt to paper over a partisan political process? We'll talk about that.
Travel often by tranquil waters and purple forests, near bright white walls and rocks of orange. In neon cities, on sun-drenched sands, in the middle of everywhere is the heart of somewhere. By icons, landmarks, valleys and skylines. Near pillars of glass, and on top of them too. It's the places you've dreamed of, and where dreams come true. When you live for adventure and discover hidden charms. When you're warm on the inside, when it's warm on the outside. Because moments make memories, and faraway places are closer than you think. Going places together with Qatar Airways.
In association with Afreximbank. Association with Afreximbank.
Register to participate in the inaugural Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF, taking place from 11 to 17 December 2018 in Cairo, Egypt. Over 70,000 visitors, buyers and sellers, 1,000 exhibitors. All African Union member states are expected, and $25 billion offered to finance trade deals concluded at the fair. Visit www.intraafricantradefair.com. IATF, transforming Africa.
I'm Nick Robertson in Aden, Yemen, and this is CNN.
Lots of names coming in from all different parts of the world.
Your place to talk about the day's headlines. CNN Talk with Max Foster. Podcast available on iTunes. The Circuit, Saturday on CNN, in association with DHL. A CNN Marketplace Africa special.
Investments are booming in Africa with some help from the Far East. I'm Eleni Jokos in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. See how bridging the infrastructure and technology gap benefits business on both sides. This valuable connection ensures the continent runs smoother for the long haul.
The Africa-Asia Profit Point. Tonight on CNN, in association with Dangote.
I'm Atika Schubert in Berlin, and this is CNN.
President Trump doing something pretty unprecedented tonight, apologizing to Brett Kavanaugh for the sexual misconduct allegations raised during his confirmation process, and doing it right at the start of Kavanaugh's ceremonial swearing in. Is this just another you had to see it to believe it moment in the Trump presidency? Here to discuss, Ana Navarro, Ryan Lizza, and Susan Glasser. Good evening to all of you. So good to have you on. Ryan, we're going to start with you. You know, everything moves at such warp speed right now. Have we forgotten that it was only August when the president's lawyer pled guilty to felony charges and implicated the president pertaining to the payoff of Stormy Daniels, who I just interviewed, by the way?
Well, yeah, I mean, the number of stories that have been lost because of the spotlight on the Kavanaugh hearings is quite a bit. I mean, just look at the New York Times tax fraud investigation this week. So yeah, there's quite a bit. But look, the Russia investigation it's sort of like a submarine operating underneath the surface, right? And you know, every once in a while, Mueller shoots off a torpedo. So that's not going away. But I think you're right, Don. That we're trying to cover 1 million stories at once, and this Kavanaugh story, for good reasons, overtook everything for a while there.
Susan, so let's talk about this swearing-in ceremony of Brett Kavanaugh, if we can put it up. What did you think when the president said Kavanaugh was proven innocent? Because that's not what really happened.
No, it's not what really happened, and it's striking that President Trump has chosen to frame this story in very different terms and much more political terms, much more partisan terms than he did initially when he wasn't quite so sure of the politics of it. Remember, he initially said that he found the testimony of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford to be credible, and he's not saying that anymore at his rallies in recent days, and at the swearing-in ceremony, he's gone 180 degrees in a different direction of saying this was somehow likening it to a courtroom-like process in which Brett Kavanaugh has been found innocent. I found it interesting that Kavanaugh himself tried to send a different message by saying he would be a justice for all Americans. You also had this powerful visual of all the other members of the Supreme Court, all the other justices, including those appointed by Democrats, showing up for the ceremony as if to close ranks and to say, well, the president may be playing this in a very divisive and partisan fashion, but the institution itself is trying to recover some of its lost credibility. I fear, however, if you look at the Supreme Court's poll numbers, they've just plummeted in terms of public trust in the institution, and that was even before this moment. So I worry about what the long-term implications are for the court on this.
Well, Anna, let's talk more about that, because I'm wondering, you know, you saw the speeches tonight, the swearing in. I'm wondering if that did anything to heal the political divide and the pain we saw last week, or this cloud, as Susan said, that's hanging over the Supreme Court.
Look, I think it's too soon. I was just doing an event with Brooke Baldwin to celebrate her American Women series, and it was with a group of women, and I can't tell you the amount of women that stood up and talked about feeling rejected, feeling sad, feeling depressed, how they couldn't move on Saturdays. It's too soon to get over this. This has been a emotional, destructive, divisive, ugly process. And I think it has gripped the nation. It has gripped, the human spirit. So it's not going to go away with one speech. Brett Kavanaugh's probably going to be in that court for decades, and he's got a lot to prove. And I think that what he did prove with this speech is that he understands that. He realizes that he has got a cloud over his head. He realizes that a majority of American women believed Christine Blasey Ford, and most of us did not think she was, confused about her accuser. I think it's been a hard process. I wish that Republicans would understand the gravity of the matter, and particularly Donald Trump, and do less football spiking.
Yeah.
This is no moment to spike the football. This is no moment to tweet out a picture of a champagne glass. This is no moment to call people mobs.
And toasting.
We need to recognize the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of victims that came out in the last 3 weeks to share their trauma and share their pain and open up their souls.
Yeah, and I wonder, this, as Anna put it, spiking the football, right? And we've seen the tweets and whatever that Anna's referencing here. The President, Ryan, calling this a hoax by Democrats 29 days out of the midterms. He's ramping things up, and he knows it's political, and he knows he has to get some energy on the Republican side because of the enthusiasm on the Democratic side that's been reported.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that is so different about this. We've been through a lot of partisan, ugly fights. This one stands out, certainly. But, most often at the end of this kind of thing, even the most partisan people on either side do usually try and at least pay lip service to the idea that the country needs to come together and there needs to be unity. And a lot of the leading Republicans seem to be driven more by the kind of, media wing of the Republican Party. And, Anna noted this tweet that got a lot of attention from Senator John Cornyn, where he, was toasting champagne. And I noticed just an enormous amount of rubbing salts in the wounds of their opponents, rather than trying to at least, reach out to the other side. Now, tonight at the White House, I think there was a little bit of Trump rubbing salt in the wounds there, where Kavanaugh, at least rhetorically, was trying to move on from this, and I think that's a big change in our politics. It's just the constant warfare and the as you said, the spiking of the football, and a sense where you don't try and govern.
John Cornyn and Lindsey Graham has been a friend for years and years and years. I'm worried, and I know them to be better than this. I know them to be people who have some level of empathy for victims. And so I worry about what I see as the Trumpification of the Republican Party, even leaders who were not that before. And I just think they've got to reflect on the message they are sending the millions of people who are hurt by this, who are shattered and crushed by this. Whether they think it's fair or not, it is a reality. Yeah. A large percent of America is crushed.
Well, we've got a lot. We're going to continue to talk, Anna, and everyone, Ryan and Susan as well. So stick around when we come back. We've got a new poll. It's out today that senators on both sides of the aisle should be worried about.
extraordinary to stand exactly where ISIS may, in fact, have been plotting attacks against the West.
Renewed airstrikes on the town of Khan Sheikhoun, where that horrific gas attack took place.
You're not thinking about the person who did this.
It won't change the fact that he killed my husband.
All they want to do right now is begin to rebuild their lives.
This is CNN.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amaryl Walker. This is CNN News Now. The world's top scientists say our planet is on the brink of catastrophic global warming. That is a dire prediction in a landmark climate report from the United Nations. It urges world leaders to take unprecedented action and says the world has fewer than 12 years to avert a disaster. And Turkey's president says Saudi Arabia should prove a missing Saudi journalist actually left its consulate in Istanbul. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancé says he never emerged from the consulate after going in for a marriage license. Saudi Arabia has denied any involvement in his disappearance. An investigative website says it has uncovered the real identity of the second of 2 Russian agents suspected in the Novichok poisonings. Bellingcat reports the agent known as Alexander Petrov is really a military doctor named Alexander Mishkin, recruited by Russian military intelligence. The site last month named the other suspect as a Russian military intelligence colonel. According to new CNN poll numbers, Donald Trump's approval rating has slightly ticked up. Right now, it stands at 41% compared with 36% in early September. Those who approve of the U.S. president largely say they are driven more by his views than his personality and leadership qualities. That is CNN News Now. I'm Amaryl Walker.
All new African Voices. This week, these dance crews and breakdancers are breaking down barriers.
Being part of a crew is like, it's family, you know, so you have one movement with all these different vibes of colors.
African Voices, today on CNN in association with Glow.
The allure of the spotlight. Performers across the Middle East are tapping into their roots and taking to stages across the United States. This month, join Becky Anderson as we go backstage with a Broadway cast, a comedian, and a singer stealing the spotlight in America. Inside the Middle East, Wednesday is CNN. In association with MISC.
Evidence tonight that the Mueller investigation just keeps rolling along. A new report that the Trump campaign reached out to an Israeli company for assistance as it battled Republican primary opponents and Hillary Clinton. Back with me now, Ana Navarro, Ryan Lizza, and Susan Glasser. So, Susan, the New York Times is reporting that the former Trump campaign official Rick Gates sought online manipulation plans from an Israeli intel firm, this was in 2016, to help defeat Hillary Clinton and Republican primary opponents. They report that there's no evidence that the Trump campaign acted on it, but how significant is this information in this report?
Well, you know, Ryan compared the Mueller investigation to that, iceberg that keeps just floating around. You occasionally see evidence of it. This is a fascinating subplot in the Mueller investigation that suggests there's a whole story there that may emerge to be much more significant in terms of the connections between the Trump campaign and efforts to bring in people to manipulate the election. That's fundamentally what this story is about. It's a really interesting, provocative report. By the way, it features Donald Trump Jr. In the story as also having had a meeting with a key person involved in this story. This is an Israeli firm that made a detailed pitch to the Trump campaign for basically how it would manipulate both the primary campaign. They were still worried about Ted Cruz at the convention and also potentially the Hillary Clinton campaign by setting up fake identities on the internet. There's references to unspecified non-public sources of information they might get on voters. It's a very interesting proposal. Now, there's no evidence, as the Times reports, that the Trump campaign acted upon this. Rick Gates, as you know, not only cooperated with the Mueller investigation, turned on his former boss and patron, Paul Manafort. He himself has participated in a lot of illegal schemes. This suggests that there was a distinct lack of ethics or moral compass that either of them brought to bear in running the Trump campaign. Whether or not this actually was put into motion or not, we don't know, though.
Yeah, and I mean, we have been reporting on significant stories, the hurricane, Kavanaugh, and other big stories as well. But this is a reminder that this Mueller investigation keeps rolling on, and that Manafort and Gates both have plea deals.
It's right, and it's we all remember when there was this push and there was this narrative that the Mueller investigation was going to get done before Labor Day, before September, that it couldn't get done after the elections, that it couldn't get done closer to the elections. It obviously is. It's obviously going on. Mueller doesn't care about, fake
timelines,
timelines.
Or deadlines.
He's going to finish this investigation. He's going to be thorough, and he's going to do it on his time. And I think there's going to be no rock that he's not gonna, that he's gonna leave unturned. God knows what he's finding under those rocks.
Yeah. Caitlin Collins is reporting tonight. I've got to ask you this, Ryan, that President Trump told allies in the last two weeks that while he hated this Kavanaugh drama, it had one perk, and the perk was getting Russia out of the press. What do you think of that, given tonight's Times report?
Well, I absolutely believe that, right? He hates the Russia story more than anything else, and there's nothing he likes more than the kind of raw political fight like he had with Kavanaugh. I think the Times story, we have to be clear, it's not really a Russia story, right? It has nothing to do with Russia or with the Russian campaign in 2016, but the methods that this Israeli firm were pitching to the Trump campaign were similar to what the Russians used, right? It was about fake social media handles that would target, at one point the idea was to target delegates at the Republican convention who might have been wobbly on Trump, and then to do the same thing against Hillary. So very much similar tactics that the intelligence community reported were used against were used against Hillary Clinton in the general election. So at the very least, it suggests to me that just like with the Trump Tower meeting, when they were open to receiving dirt from the Russians, they were open to at least talking about some campaign tactics that were over the line, at least traditionally. Now, it did say in one of the presentations that they were not going to break any laws or regulations of the U.S., but on the other hand, the whole campaign was about creating manufactured avatars and doing a sort of, as the company was called, PSYOPs operation on the opponent. So I read the article as another example of the Trump campaign being open to using tactics that other campaigns wouldn't touch.
Susan, I want to ask you about a new poll that's out tonight, and it's on Justice Kavanaugh. Majorities disapprove of each party's handling of the Kavanaugh hearings. 55% disapprove of the Senate GOP, 56 disapprove of the Senate Republicans, 55 disapprove of Senate GOP, 56 disapprove of Senate Democrats. I mean, that's a virtual dead heat, right? It's a tie. Did both sides come out of this wounded?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard for me to imagine that anyone looks at the Senate Judiciary Committee or the leadership in either party as having conducted a Supreme Court nomination process that is something that the country can be proud of. Both sides will forever look back on this incident, this chapter in our political history with a great deal of skepticism and doubt because the process was so deeply flawed. And it strikes me that obviously it's now being used for partisan political reasons because the election is so close. But putting that aside, Congress as an institution, it seems to me, just utterly failed. The idea that Republicans basically said, well, we have the vote, so we demand a vote instantly. They were only forced by a couple of their own members to have less than a week-long, very cursory investigation that, of course, could never fully put to rest the charges. When you spend 3 business days on it and interview 9 witnesses, that does a disservice, it strikes me, to Brett Kavanaugh as much as to the women who came forward to publicly accuse him of sexual misconduct. it. So the process was a disgrace. And I want to point out, you mentioned earlier the political argument that Trump and other Republicans are making now, that this was a mob rule. This was an example of, these hordes of, raging suburban women attacking senators, and that's going to be a political winning issue for them. I'm deeply skeptical of that, and I think in general I would hope that everybody's coverage of this would be much more skeptical. The idea that a line repeated by everyone over and over again therefore becomes fact. I think you're seeing how brilliant in a way Trump is at communicating. He's created this idea of a mob that somehow attacked Brett Kavanaugh. It's a fascinating argument to use. I'm interested that it is rallying supporters in some very Republican states before the election, but I feel like we ought to be deeply skeptical. The idea that hordes of suburban middle-class women are now constituting a mob rule in America is a fascinating argument. Right?
I was struck and saddened to remember that it was just a little bit over a month ago that the country laid to rest John McCain, and we saw that display of bipartisanship at his services. We saw Barack Obama, we saw George W. Bush, we saw a call for civility, a call for the integrity of the institution, a call for being statesmanlike as he was. And here we were a few weeks later, and the worst political spectacle and display of partisanship. It laid bare the absolute grotesque dysfunction of the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Congress. I think every American should be mad as hell at what they saw.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Don.
We'll be right back.
Who am I? I have 5,000 years of trust and promise. Yet I am modern and agile. I sit in the heart, at the center, the crossroads of commerce. I am your connection, your link, your gateway. I am cultured, liberal, and friendly. I am bright, youthful, and full of potential. I am bold, pioneering, and equipped for the future. Know me yet? Think you know Bahrain? Think again.
The inaugural Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF 2018, brought to you by the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, in collaboration with African Union and hosted by the Arab Republic of Egypt, invites you to the first ever gathering of buyers and sellers, promoting matchmaking, business-to-business transactions on the African continent. The IATF will take place in Cairo from 11 to 17 December 2018. Various financial institutions offering trade finance valued at over $25 billion will be in attendance. Over 70,000 visitors, buyers and sellers will be attending from all African and various non-African countries. African heads of state, trade and industry ministers, finance ministers, and private sector will be participating in the trade fair. The IATF provides a platform for entry into a single market of over 1 billion people, joined together by the African Continental Free Trade Area. Intra-African Trade, transforming Africa.
This is the State of America. Join me, Kate Baldwin, for the latest in U.S. politics, the Donald Trump presidency, and a nation divided. We have smart people. What does this change for Donald Trump?
It is going to play very well to his base.
And smart discussions.
I get the sense that there's a lot of overanalysis going on.
And a whole lot of fun. There is no fair due process on this show.
State of America with Kate Baldwin. Friday on CNN. The Circuit, Saturday on CNN, in association with DHL.
Plastic is big business, and it's a big threat to our environment. We produce about 300 million tons of it every year. The most popular things we make are things like these. But of all the plastic ever created, only 9% has been recycled, which means a lot of it ended up in the dump and our natural environment. In fact, 8 million tons of plastic is dumped into our oceans every year. By 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in our waters. But the same durability that makes plastic so useful also makes it a danger to our marine environment. This stuff takes years to break down, and as it does, it can end up in the food chain, where it releases harmful toxins contaminating fish that we ourselves eat. Though at this point, scientists don't know exactly what eating contaminated fish does to the human body. What we do know is that there are ways to help keep plastic from ending up in the dumps and our oceans in the first place. Here are 5 things you can do to use less plastic. Cut out plastic straws. Use stainless steel or card ones instead. Bring a reusable carrier bag with you instead of relying on plastic ones. Pack meals in reusable containers. Invest in reusable bottles for drinks instead of using plastic bottles or takeaway cups. And here's a surprising one. Stop chewing gum. It's made of synthetic rubber, which is a type of plastic. So remember, your plastic picks can make a change.
After days of silence, President Trump finally weighing in on the disappearance of a Washington Post journalist who lives in the United States and is a prominent critic of the Saudi royal court. Listen to this.
I am concerned about it. I don't like hearing about it. And hopefully that will sort itself out. Right now, nobody knows anything about it, but there's some pretty bad stories going around. I do not like it.
Well, Jamal Khashoggi is missing after going to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to get documents for his upcoming marriage. This is the last known image of Khashoggi captured on CCTV as he steps inside the consulate door. Okay, the image obtained by the Washington Post. Saudi officials say he came in and left, dismissing reports of his killing as what they call baseless allegations. But Turkish officials have told the Washington Post they believe Khashoggi was murdered at the consulate. And tonight, the president and the Secretary of State are speaking out. Secretary Pompeo saying he wants an investigation. So I want to bring in now a colleague of Khashoggi's, and that's Jason Rezaian. Jason, good evening. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's talk about this.
Sure, Don.
You
Thanks
and your
for having me on.
colleagues have been closely monitoring every detail of this really awful story. What is the latest on what you all believe happened to Jamal Khashoggi?
Well, unfortunately, Don, we don't know much more than those initial reports from several days ago. We're glad to see that the President and Secretary of State are weighing in and asking for investigation, but it's really hard to believe or accept that these two governments, that the United States has very close security relationships with Turkey, where the consulate was, and Saudi Arabia, whose consulate it was, don't have more information to share with us on this. And, I think our hope is that we will get some news that Jamal is still alive, but these initial reports from Turkish law enforcement that they believe that he was murdered inside the consulate are more than distressing. They're horrifying.
Yeah.
And, it's hard for us to just sit here and accept that this is happening, and we won't accept it.
Well, let's talk about this. You said horrifying because the Turkish President Erdogan says that he is taking a personal interest in this investigation, that he is looking into the arrival of 15 Saudi Arabian nationals in Istanbul at the same time as Khashoggi's disappearance. Do you believe they were sent there to murder him?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not there on the ground. I would hope that those reports turn out to be false, but we've heard about terrible behavior of Saudi Arabia within their own borders. But to pull something like that off in a diplomatic mission on foreign soil is unheard of, and shouldn't be taken lightly by anybody in the world.
If I can follow up on something you said earlier, you said that you were happy that the president spoke about it because he broke his silence on the disappearance, saying that he was concerned, that he doesn't like it. Should he be more forceful? And what more can he do?
Well, I think that the United States traditionally has been much more forceful about press freedom and protection of journalists around the world. Unfortunately, over the past year and a half during this administration, we've seen such a sharp uptick in attacks on journalists all over the world, including in long-time democratic societies. And I think it's always been the place of the U.S. president to be sort of a moral authority on this particular issue. And unfortunately, that's been lacking so far.
Yeah. Jared Kushner and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman have a close relationship. Trump himself even tweeted his support of the Crown Prince's crackdown on rival Saudi royalty. Is the Crown Prince emboldened to do whatever he wants because of those ties?
Well, I don't know if he's emboldened because of those ties. You know, they have a long and checkered history inside that country.
They certainly don't hurt, though.
Well, you know, and we've been led to believe that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is under this massive set of reform programs, but we don't see the results of that. And when Mohammed bin Salman came to the United States several months ago, earlier this year, you know, he was selling himself as this great liberalizer, and I think that you know, a lot of folks in the media kind of accepted that, and a lot of people in government wanted to believe that that was the case, but we have no indication that that's true at all.
Jason Rezaian, thank you for coming on and talking about this story, and keep talking about it until we get some resolution. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
The president using Brett Kavanaugh swearing in as just another opportunity to lash out at his political opponents. But couldn't he use the ceremony as a chance to unite rather than divide?
Do you think you're addicted to your phones? A generation raised on smartphones. You're walking down the hall and people aren't even talking to each other. Is facing a mental health crisis.
I would just feel alone, like no one could understand me.
Never before have we been so connected. So why do we feel so out of touch?
This addiction that we're seeing is not by accident, it's by design.
This is Life with Lisa Lang, Monday on CNN.
For many kids, just showing up to school is a challenge. Staying through graduation is even harder. So at communities and schools, we do just what our name says. Our staff brings a community of resources to meet each student's needs right in their school, doing whatever it takes to keep kids focused so they see what we see, a bright future. Join in at communitiesinschools.org.
Interviewed 5 U.S. presidents, authored 7 books, and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smirconish, Saturday on CNN.
From the waves of the South to the contours of the East. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
This is the 100 Club, our look at companies that are 100 years old or older.
One of our most popular teas is the famous Earl Grey blend.
It's the drink that built a nation. The best tea may be produced in China or India, but there are few countries which enjoy a nice cuppa more than England. And in London, there's one company which has been brewing up for more than 300 years.
With or without milk, it's your cup of tea. You must drink it the way you like it. And yes, a day without Earl Grey is not a good day. The company started when Thomas Twining bought an existing London coffee house. Within the city of London, there were over 2,000 coffee houses, so intense competition. So having trained in tea, he introduced fine quality teas to his coffee house as a point of difference.
in Caracas, and this is CNN.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amanpour. Here's what's coming up.
Time is running out. A stark new report urges governments and all of us to act now to stop catastrophic climate change. What you can do to fight back. The architect of the Paris Agreement, Christiana Figueres, joins the show. Also ahead, what happened to journalist and Saudi critic Jamal Khashoggi? Turkish officials claim he was killed after entering his consulate in Istanbul. The former U.S. ambassador to NATO, Ivo Dalda, reacts. Plus, Brett Kavanaugh and the politicization of the Supreme Court. My conversation with the leading conservative thinker, Robert George. And then a much-needed antidote for our times. Comedian Asif Manvi talks about his play about Indian immigrants who come to New York to pursue their American dream.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Christiana Amanpour in London. We're living through extreme heat, floods, inundated coastlines right now. But UN